Good afternoon, class. We have been reading Bud Not Buddy. In the story, Bud stays in various places. He stays in a group home with a bunch of other boys, and then a foster home with the Amoses, and then he makes a decision. He decides to go and look for his father. As he begins his journey to find his father, he is faced with also finding food and shelter. This is not an easy task for him. During this time, it was the Great Depression, and many people lost their homes and had to live in these shanty towns, kind of like the one that's pictured right here. Buck called them Hoovervilles, but they were actually called Hoovervilles. So during the Great Depression, starting in 1929, spontaneous settlements called shantytowns appeared across the U.S. In the 1930s, severe hardship for millions of Americans caused them to look to the federal government for help. The assistance they needed was not provided, and many felt the government had failed them. A large amount of blame was placed on Herbert Hoover, our president, or the horrible economical and social conditions. As a result, many people became unemployed, unable to find work, pay for rent or food for their families, and were evicted from their homes or forced to relocate. Individuals moved to settlements which were usually found on the sidelines of cities, in public parks, or near railroad tracks, rivers, or city trash dumps. People lived in conditions without proper sanitation, safe water supply, electricity, or other basic human necessities. They were called squatters. Now, I want to take a moment and I want you guys to look at a video. This video is just a small representation of the Great Depression in Central Park. Central Park is located over here on the map, as you can see, in New York City. And remember, we talked about this is where Michigan is, and this is where New York City is. So they're not that far from each other, but I want you to take a minute and watch this video and just to give you a better picture.
Beginning with the stock market crash of Black Tuesday, October 29, 1929, the Great Depression became a worldwide economic crisis that in the United States was marked by widespread unemployment, near halts in industrial production and construction, and an 89% decline in stock.
So you've had an opportunity to see a little bit about how the Great Depression started and what ended up happening to people in New York City at Central Park. And now I want you to just take a moment in your groups and just discuss what you saw, what stood out for you, or how you connect it to what we've read so far in the book. So you have your teams, and now let's talk about what we're going to be doing in this Webquest. So your team task is to discover more about Hoovervilles. We're reading Bud Not Buddy, and as I said before, Hoovervilles are a significant part or a significant setting in the story. Bud stays in Hoovervilles all across Michigan in search of his father, and Hoovervilles existed all across the United States. You will gain information on different states and cities across the country. Your group will be responsible for learning about these shanty towns in the setting of your book and a major city close to you during the Great Depression. You will answer the following questions about Hoovervilles, as well as some questions of your own. So the questions that we're looking for you to answer are, where do they live? What situations have caused them to become homeless and how? What problems do they face? How are they able to survive? And what resources are available to them? The next part of your task is your team will research homeless in America today. Once you've discovered this information, you will compare and contrast the homeless situation in the 1930s with today, the homeless in a Google Power Slide presentation. Think critically about the dynamics and discover what the similarities and differences, as well as improvements for the major city you selected. As a group, you will pick a city from your reading and learn the following about the homeless in that location. Same thing, where do they live? What situation caused them to become homeless? And how many are there? What problems do they face? How are they able to survive? And what resources are available to them? As you can see, I put a picture up and you can see there's a difference, but there also are some similarities in the pictures. Now, let's go on and let's begin. Today is going to be our first day starting. So let's look at our process, our tasks for each day. And remember, this is a team project, so we're going to remember to use our teamwork. Everybody will have a role. So today, your team will explore photos of Hoovervilles online from your selected location. You're going to pick 2 to 3 photos and download them onto your laptop and save them to a file. And then you're next going to look at the photos of homeless in the major cities. And you're also going to pick 2 to 3 photos to download and describe. Remember to note their location, what they look like, and what they're made of, and what objects you see, and tools and furnishings. So let's take a peek at one of the websites that I picked for you. You guys are going to go in here and explore more deeply. So here we have a photo collage of Hoovervilles during the Great Depression, and this takes place in different locations. We have Portland, Oregon, we have Circleville, Ohio, and we have Bakersfield, California. Once you get there, you're going to go ahead and click in, and you're going to start looking at the photos. Make note of things like the wood, the shack-like figure, where it's located in the background. You see a bunch of tires. So where does that tell you that it possibly could be? You're right, it could be at a dump or at a recycling center. So next, let's go and look at what we're going to do for the next couple days. The next thing we're going to look at is our next task, which is your team will learn more about Hoovervilles, and you're going to create a list of questions and divide them among your team and start finding out answers using the resources listed. Don't forget to include the questions that I asked earlier in the beginning of the introduction. You guys can go back and gather your information and discuss what you found interesting. So I've given you a couple resources and that give you the history of Hooverville. There's also the Legend of American Hooverville, the Shantytown Facts, and even Wikipedia has a map and information. I want you to go ahead and look at those and select, each of you should be looking at different ones and gather information. And then you're going to come back in your groups and you're going to share. Okay, we're ready for our next task, which is task number 3, our next part of the process. And your team is going to now get to do some research of your own. I'm not going to give you the information. You're going to look for the information. So I'm sure that you guys have gone ahead and picked a city that you want to explore, and you're going to create a list of questions that you want to find out or you think that you should answer about that city, and you're going to start looking for resources and looking to answer those questions. Don't forget to include the questions that I asked you in the beginning and gather your information and any interesting facts. So these are the search engines that I want you to make use of. If you select the search engine Kittle, you can go in and let's say that today I want to look up Los Angeles homeless. I'm going to type in Los Angeles homeless. And voila, there is a bunch of articles and videos, and I'm going to scroll through and I'm going to see which one really looks like something that may be of interest or of use to me. I see this one right here looks really interesting with from News ELA, and look, it shows a picture of a little house, a makeshift house, and maybe that's something that I might want to explore, or maybe there's images from this that I might want to use. However you choose to do it, I want you to go ahead and do that in your group. All right, so great. Now we're on to our next task. So you've gotten your information about the city, you've looked up articles, and you've made sure to keep a record of your resources. And now we're going to go on to downloading our graphic organizer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the graphic organizer so you can take a look at it. And this is really going to be what helps you in your groups to organize what will later become your slide presentation. So let's go ahead and I'm going to select our graphic organizer, and it is a compare and contrast because we've been talking about things that are alike and things that are different. So I want you to use this graphic organizer to compare and contrast the different elements or different questions that come into play. You may end up using 10 to 15 of these, and that's perfectly okay. But this is really going to help with the structure and making sure that you get the right information and the best information in there for your presentation. All right, so I am super excited because this by far is one of my favorite parts of the project. It's seeing all your hard work come together and starting to build that presentation. So what I've done for you is each of you has your Google account. So you're going to go in and you're going to select the link right here, and you're going to log into your Google account, okay? You'll be doing, this is where you get to take time to work on individual work. So what you'll find in here is that this is one place that all of you guys will meet online. So everything that you do will come together. I've linked you guys together as a group. So make sure that as you're doing this, you're saving it so that the rest of the group is able to see it, and you'll be able to look at your final presentation. Remember to fairly divide up the slides so that you're each working on something for the group, and that's what we're going to work on today. So we're going to go ahead and go back to where we were, and as you're working on your slides, as I said, make sure that you're saving and you're using bullet points, and don't forget to include some graphics in there. All right, so if you guys have gone ahead and you've finished your slides and you've put them together, today is our cleanup day. We're going to format and edit those slides and go through each slide and make the corrections and the errors. So each of you is responsible for looking at someone else's slides and making sure that, you know, there's no errors, that it reads well, that it looks nice, and format. So hooray, you guys have gotten your presentations together and everything looks good. So I want you guys to break off into your group. You'll each just take one laptop and decide who's going to say what in the presentation. And I'm going to have you guys sit and practice in your groups and get ready for our presentation day, which will be our last part of the process. I am super duper excited, and I can't wait to see what you guys have in store for our class. Just some things to note as we're getting into our final part of our project is I want you guys to go back and make sure that you take a look at our group rubric and make sure that as you're looking through your slides and your presentation that everything meets these requirements. There's a bunch of requirements, and I want to make sure that you guys are making sure that you meet those requirements in your slides. If you need to go back and make any changes or add anything, then go ahead and do that. Wow, here we are at the end, and I want to say great job, everyone. Give yourselves a round of applause. Not only did you guys learn about Hoovervilles, you learned how the homeless population continued to exist, Many of the reasons you found were similar to the ones of the homeless